Welcome to the Autonomy Project. Welcome to the Autonomy Project, a year-long experiment comparing education models. Every week you'll get a peek into our flow-demand lifestyle, a recap of our week in public school, and then you can watch us learn about business by building one together. Let's get started.
Welcome to week 2 of 6th grade. This is my parent diary. The last 2 weeks have been rough. My son was on a perfect sleep schedule and is now almost completely nocturnal. When he's awake, he is back into beast mode. Combative, angry, moody, apologetic. He's not eating well. He's avoiding me, I noticed. And I'm not serving him very well because I'm struggling with a little bit of freeze mode of my own. I am feeling the lack of support and folks to talk to about this because I hope that Dr. Tamara Hill explain family mobbing and group abuse dynamics a little better. Let's hear Dr. Tamara Hill explain family mobbing and group abuse dynamics a little better. Let's hear Dr. Tamara Hill explain family mobbing and group abuse dynamics a little better. Let's hear Dr. Tamara Hill explain family mobbing and group abuse dynamics a little better. Let's hear Dr. Tamara Hill explain family mobbing and group abuse dynamics a little better. Let's hear Dr. Tamara Hill explain family mobbing.
Person with the power in the family is going to do. So this would be, for example, your mother. What she's going to do is pit you and your siblings against each other. She is going to blame you for everything, possibly make you the scapegoat, right? So you're the identified patient in the family. You know, you're the one with the depression. You're the one with the anxiety. You're the one with the, multiple years of depressive episodes and you can't get right. Or you are the one in the family who is addicted to drugs and alcohol and you can't get off. You are the one who tends to become manic and you tear the family apart. So all the nice family members are going to go over here and avoid you, right? While they push you over here into this category of nothingness where you don't have family support. And in that process of losing family support, you're most likely going to experience a variety of family members who are going to want to know what's going on. They're going to be told things that are not true. So there's going to be some untruths. There may also be some gossiping, and there may also be some manipulation of facts. And so that creates this whole family drama, right? This whole field of family drama, and it's hard to wiggle your way out of it.
Look, you're not a failure as a parent. You're a strategic parent, parenting a child with PDA autism. In a lot of rooms, you're going to be tried and convicted, and your friends and family will be the jury. It's a corrosive and structured dynamic, this family mobbing. It's a pattern of criticism from the entire collective, psychological pressure, and it's remarkably common for people navigating the world of pathological demand avoidance. Family mobbing is rarely a single overt act of aggression. It's a campaign of 1,000 cuts delivered through established family roles and relationships. Let's examine the common archetypes of this coalition. First, there's the crusader of concern. This is usually the matriarch or the patriarch, a grandparent maybe, who frames their criticism as love. Their attacks are framed in the language of worry. You hear, I'm just worried you're letting him walk all over you. We want to see you happy. You look so stressed. You're bringing this all on yourself. Have you tried a sticker chart? Have you tried taking away his phone? The subtext is clear. Your competence is in question. The concern is a socially acceptable veneer for judgment, making it incredibly difficult to defend against without appearing ungrateful or overly sensitive. They position themselves as the wise elder, and you're the naive, struggling child who just refuses to accept good help. Maybe you have an underminer in your family, a sibling, a relative, maybe a grandparent or co-parent after a breakup that undermines every rule and every routine you have set up for your child. Your kiddo comes back from your ex's house and you ask, is homework done? And, he just says, look at that stuff you are. Or, your child lets slip that dad lets him play a video game he's not allowed to. In my case, it was Grand Theft Auto. And, my rules, my house was also a big phrase that was thrown around. So, whatever consistency around rules you try to establish, this person undermines it just to do it. Maybe the family operates in a back channel network. This is the insidious element. The cousins texting each other from across the room. The phone call your father makes to your sister after you've left, beginning with, so, did you see that kid? You don't hear the words, but you feel them. You know they're out there. You see the shared glances. You see the sudden silence when you enter the room. The network solidifies this in-group consensus that you're the problem. It spreads a comfortable narrative that because you're permissive, your child is undisciplined, that you're just making excuses. And that becomes the family's accepted truth. You are identified as the family scapegoat. Why is this dynamic so prevalent with our families? Because low demand parenting, viewed from the outside, looks like the inverse of every conventional parenting metric society values. Our flexibility is lack of boundaries. Our co-regulation is perceived as coddling. Our collaborative problem solving is letting the child rule. The family mob isn't born from malice, it's just a rigid adherence to these old neurotypical worldviews. They see you and your child as a behavioral problem requiring a harsh disciplinary solution. They can't comprehend that we're addressing a neurological reality that exists inside our body and requires a regulatory solution for our nervous systems. When we refuse their help, the sticker charts, the timeouts, the punishments, the taking away of things, they feel like we're rejecting them, not just a parenting tip. In their eyes, we're rejecting their whole family's wisdom and traditions. It's a perceived rejection, and that's what galvanizes us against the coalition. It's like our physical bodies versus their deeply held beliefs. And they're not going to be able to step into our feet and empathize with us because they have to hold on to the worldview that what we say isn't true. So we just become the black sheep. Everything that they don't understand is projected onto us. We didn't fail our child, but we failed to conform to their expectations and norms. So what do we do when it comes down to our own bodies and the bodies and well-being of our children versus culturally created norms? You cannot win a debate with people who have already reached their verdict. The only path forward is strategic disengagement and radical boundary setting. This is not about winning a fight. It's about refusing to enter the arena. Your energy is finite and a precious resource. It belongs to you and your children, not a family debate club. So how do we disengage? When the crusader of concern starts, your response is not a detailed defense of PDA. It's, I appreciate perspective, but we have a strategy that's guided by specialists. End of sentence. No further explanation needed. When the underminer strikes, you call it out. You You say, when you contradict me, you create confusion and instability for my kid. It's not okay. Some of us are still dependent on judgmental family members for whatever reason. And so we are hearing these things in real time while we're trying to adjust our child to a new school year. And for some of us, like me, we've gotten ourselves a safe little bubble away from these actual humans speaking to us in this manner. But I still have to deal with the internal family mob, the internalized whispers that of course come out when I'm feeling a little weak, a little self-conscious about my approach, when my child's overdue lessons are adding up, when his mood is down in the dumps, when we don't make what the traditional world counts as progress. It's important to remember and constantly remind ourselves that these dynamics exist. They shape who we are, they shape how we think, they shape how we feel and react when we haven't gotten enough sleep, enough food, when we're feeling anxiety or stress. So we can't abandon ourselves in these tough moments. And in order for me to show up non-judgmentally for my son this week, I had to work through these feelings of lack that the inner and outer family mob were acting upon me, and that was work. So we both took space to do that this week. It's important. So let's review our week in public school. There's not much to report this week at all, and there's nothing to show. My son continued to fall further and further away from a normal circadian rhythm and schedule till he landed at a day at the end of the week where he was awake for 24 hours and slept at 3 p.m. the following day. What we were able to do is log in every day and play some live lessons so that some of these big concepts being introduced and reintroduced, or at least in his atmosphere. But I was not able to get him to. So to recap, this week I hung out, I didn't force, I managed my own anxieties around the overdue lessons piling up. Played recordings of the live lessons daily for him. I made opportunities for him to complete work one section at a time by just sort of asking him the first question as he walked by, seeing if he'd be willing to bite, and letting it go if he wasn't. And I gave him time. I tried to be non-judgmental as I figured out what was going on. In the back of my mind was also, this is not my first rodeo, and both myself and his older sibling use the tried and true, we don't want to do it method of waiting until the night before it's absolutely done to let the fear and adrenaline push us into doing the assignment. So I thought, we have a little leeway as long as he's still signing in. Let's see how he organically approaches it. Let's see if that. So that's where we ended the week. Pretty combative and not involved with our bedtime creeping later and later. Let's take a look next at what happened in our week with the Collins Project.
Okay, team, let's talk about our next big project.
We're learning how to plan a food brand. 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 We're serving takoyaki sandwiches made on fresh-baked Japanese milk bread. We're working on menu planning, kitchen skills, food safety, and food cost. This week it's milk bread. Getting better. Looking like the real thing. Looking more like the real thing. Texture's good, but still a little dense. And that's how it goes in the pan. Effie.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Now that we've reviewed our activities, let's take a look at the data and see how these two schools compared this week. Now that we've reviewed our activities, let's take a look at the data and see how these two schools compared this week. Now that we've reviewed our activities, let's take a look at the weekly report time. We've got ones across the board for public school. Collins Institute is coming in with mostly 4s. We've got a 3 in communication and a 3 in enjoyment. So let's take a look at our reports and see how we got to these numbers. In week 2 of our restaurant project, we focused on different recipes for the Japanese milk bread that revealed different textures. Creativity and critical thinking were high as we had to think about what each ingredient did and how changing a method or an ingredient would change the desired results. Better collaboration this week. Communication is still coming in the form of bossing, but contributing and enjoying the opportunity to take an authority position and teach. Enjoyment overall this week was very low. It's a lot of depression and just loss of interest. And of course our week in public school left a lot to be desired. There's a lot of passive, maybe listening to recorded material. There's no engaging, and so there's really nothing to report on. Communication is more aggressive. Honestly, he was more creative in avoiding the material. When we did engage, we did talk about synonyms without violence. And then he finally finished his narrative assignment by writing a poem about the narrative. So, malicious compliance, control over the situation, super PDA response to being asked to write a narrative. Somebody watching might feel that rings familiar to some of your kids engaged with assignments. Otherwise, he manipulated his sleep schedule so that he could mostly avoid me and my request to get work done. I kind of let him. And of course, our week in public school left a lot to be desired. There was a lot of passive, maybe listen. That's it for the second week of 6th grade. Join us next week when we finally get a hold of his teacher.